Now, in Australia, officials believe almost 2,000 homes have been destroyed since the country's bushfire crisis began. Firefighters are capitalising on the milder weather conditions to try and boost containment lines around the blazes engulfing southeastern Australia, as people there prepare for things to get worse later this week. Let's just get the very latest. Lucy has been looking at events over the past 12 hours.
So these bats have really been struggling with climate change and the extreme heat temperatures we've been having. Their mothers haven't been able to feed them enough, so they've been abandoned. In the Shoalhaven alone, we've had thousands and thousands of bats die. These guys are the lucky ones. They were saved when they were just 30 days old, and we've been raising them ever since, and they will go out back into the wild to hopefully reproduce and make more babies.
And the worry for the bats is?
So with climate change, the bats aren't doing very well. Alone in the last month, we've had thousands die. In the last year, they're just getting decimated. Over the next few years, we'll probably see the decline of the bats and possibly the extinction of at least 2 species. These guys are threatened species as it is, so any loss is a huge loss to the populations. They're very important for the Australian bush. They're the most important long-range pollinators of the eucalypt forests, and now we don't have very many left from the fires.
So Nikki, show me what you've got in here, who we've got.
Okay, so in here we have a baby mountain brushtail possum. So he's had to be evacuated as well with us. He'll be released into the wild. These guys are in care for a very long time. We'll have him for close to a year. Baby kangaroos and wombats are in care for about 2 years, so it's a long time commitment. It's going to take decades and decades for the bush to regenerate properly. You know, the impacts of fire, beyond just what we see with the green tree leaves and all that sort of stuff. There's impacts to the soil, there's impacts to the insects and all that sort of stuff. You just year after year see less and less frogs, you see less and less, you know, of those little species that can't handle big changes. So yeah, it's, you know, it's really scary.
That was Lucy speaking to somebody who's been rescuing some of the wildlife there. In fact, Lucy can join us now. Lucy, you're in Wandundian. What's the situation like there at the moment?
Hi Tim, yes, it's just past 9 in the evening here in rural Wandundian, and I'm in the middle of pretty burnt out bush. Everyone here feels very much in a state of limbo because it's been cooler here and there has been some rain, but we're expecting the heat and the wind to return in the coming days, and that's so worrying for people, of course. Let me just show you what is happening in terms of across the whole country. This is quite an amazing visualisation done by NASA. Among the worst of the fires, of course, here in Australia is in New South Wales, and the focus is very much as well on these 3 huge fires which officials fear could merge into a mega blaze across New South Wales and the Victoria border. And firefighters have, we think, about a 48-hour window to tackle the front before temperatures spike again on Friday. Now, as I mentioned, I'm in the middle of the bush, and driving here we came off the Princes Highway, which is a main road here in Australia. It is mile upon mile of blackened and charred bush, and we wanted to bring you a very personal perspective of what is happening with the bushfires. And I'm on the property of Adrina and Al Sellers, and the drive to their property tragically just shows the scale of the devastation, really, because it is absolutely a picture of devastation. And Adrina is with me now. Her property may not be in a good state. Incredibly, we're right at her gate, and Adrina, your house survived, goodness knows why. But someone else survived too. Who have you got?
This is Bernie.
That's an appropriate name.
Yes, and he was found just a couple of weeks ago, just when the South Coast fires were starting, and he was found by some RMS, so that the Roads and Maritime Services, who have to go through and check the roads for any trees and power lines and things like that that may have come down and be unsafe before they can open the highway. So they saw him and his little buddy, a little girl, that were very displaced looking, and they managed to rescue them. And being the coordinator, lots of these end up here with me.
And how's he doing? How are his paws?
He's doing really well. Unfortunately, his feet have been burned, and hence he needs dressings. But he's doing well. The tips of his ears have been damaged, but he's doing really well. He's got through the worst of it, so it's a matter of just getting those feet back to normal, and so he can.
It's really
grow
nice
up
to
and
talk
be-
about a tale of survival here,
Yeah.
because across New South Wales it's just a horrible figure, Adrina. 500 million animals have suffered.
Absolutely devastating, and it's just.
It's heartbreaking, isn't
Yeah,
it?
heartbreaking, unimaginable. Sorry, it's quite emotional.
But he's doing well, and so is his friend. And what about the other kangaroos? Because you were worried they wouldn't come back, some of your kangaroos, and they have. It was
we had
wonderful to see them earlier.
We had to release some that were almost ready for release, and too big to move. So we had to release them on the property, and just hope that they had enough time to find safe places, and they did. All of them have survived. One of them only has burnt feet, but all the rest seem to be perfect at this stage, including one mama with a new Joey. So
That is really
very
wonderful
exciting.
news. What about your evacuation? Was that traumatic?
It's so traumatic, it's unbelievable. The idea of having to leave behind everything, you can deal with losing your house. Leaving the animals behind was really heartbreaking. So it was so relieving to see them come back when I managed to get in and visit the property, and to see the little faces and everything was pretty
How many
exciting.
times have you evacuated?
We've
over the past week?
evacuated 4 times, and the last time we stayed out, and the 4th time there was 2 fires that came while we were out the last time. So we were out from New Year's Eve, and we've only come back last night.
And your house survived.
And my house survived, and the shed survived, and it's unbelievable.
How do you even begin to rebuild now, Adrina? What goes through your mind when you look at the bush behind you?
Well, it's really sad, but I know I'm looking forward to seeing all the little green tips and everything coming out, and it growing back again, because it will grow back. We've lost a lot. It's very black out there. It's probably the worst side here from this side, but yeah, it's really.
Thank you for sharing your home and your story and your kangaroos with us. We're so pleased to see that Bernie is doing well. Really, it is, as I mentioned earlier, 6 million hectares of land across Australia charred and burnt, and the story of the wildlife is truly tragic. I mean, there are real fears that it's going to take years, perhaps decades, for some species to come back. $2 billion of recovery aid pledged by Scott Morrison today, but we are expecting the wind and the heat to return. This could go on for many weeks yet.
Goodness. Okay, Lucy, with the very latest there, thank you very much indeed.